coming up on Veterans Matters. It's part 2 of Seaman Martin McHugh being honored in Danville, Illinois. That's coming up next on Veterans Matters.
The tide of the war had turned, and our seaman, Martin McHugh, by his heroism and valor with his companions, had contributed his part to that turn of the tide. It was only 6 days later, on 10 July 1863, that President Lincoln happily signed the Medal of Honor award for Seaman Martin McHugh in the name of the Congress of the United States. Seaman McHugh served the rest of the war on the USS Lexington. After the war was over, Martin McHugh was separated from the Navy on 15 June 1865 in Cincinnati. Here in Danville, after the war, Martin McHugh took a job with A.C. Daniels and worked in the Ellsworth line. For the next 35 years of his life, he would work in various mines in the area. In 1890, Martin himself was badly injured in mine number 4 Tilton. And he was working next to his brother-in-law, John Flaherty. He was knocked unconscious for a time and badly hurt on his left side and could not stand. He was taken out of the mine, and Mr. Bunker himself, the superintendent of mines, took him to his home on the land in his own buggy. Soon, however, he recovered and went back to the mines. Probably after this accident, his first, the rumor got around that he had died. In a similar situation about rumor of death, Mark Twain would make his famous comment, "Rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated." Not as eloquent as Mark Twain, but in his own distinctive way, Martin here in Danville proclaimed he was alive by walking around our town showing himself to his many friends to be fully alive and in good condition. In March 1894, again working next to John Flaherty, he witnessed his brother-in-law suddenly crushed to death as a ceiling collapsed and killed him in the mine. Martin almost miraculously was spared. Over the years, Martin became a respected citizen of Danville. He worked in the mines for almost 35 years and was well regarded by his fellow workers. He enjoyed his wounds and would sometimes show them the gold medal he had received from President Abraham Lincoln. But even his obituary did not mention that that medal was the Medal of Honor. In 1900, he suffered paralysis, which was probably the terminology used now for what we would call a stroke. He was able to stay at home for 3 years. Finally, on 7 June 1903, he entered the Old Soldiers' Home, now our present Veterans Administration. He would be there the rest of his life. 13 days before his death, he entered the hospital there and died on 24 February 1905. He was buried in Old St. Patrick's on this very site, and his body was taken to Resurrection Cemetery, probably on the same route that we will take today. Over the years, the memory of Martin and his family slowly passed as his daughters and their families moved away. His medal, and the memory of his medal, and the heroic circumstances under which he had fought, slowly faded and never forgotten. But now, thanks again to Ray Johnson, perseverance and enthusiasm, and Larry Weatherford's knowledge and special interest in the Civil War, Martin's memory and his heroism have been rediscovered. A host of others have already joined them in their quest, and hopefully after today, even more will join that expanding family of interest in Seaman and citizen Martin McHugh. We are dedicated to learning more about him and his family, the story of his valor and heroism, the story of his Medal of Honor. This today is only a beginning. Now it is our task and our duty to keep this memory alive and not again forget this great hero. He came from Ireland to his adopted country of America. During the Civil War, the young man served his country heroically and then returned to Danville, which he made his home for the next 40 years. Now he belongs to the ages, as Secretary of War Edwin M. Stanton said after the death of President Abraham Lincoln. But in a special way, this Medal of Honor winner belongs to us, to Danville, to Vermilion County, to the state of Illinois, to the United States of America, his adopted country. May we now and in the future be worthy to preserve his memory and recall his heroism. May each of us here today rededicate ourselves to God and country. God bless the land of the free and the home of the brave, the United States of America.
Color attention! Forward! March! Present! Hard! Detail and hook! Present! Hook! Right wheel, march! Arthur, halt! Color guard, halt! Present, arms!
The United States Navy Color Guard, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have a round of applause for them being here. We're starting off this portion of our ceremony with some of our public officials. We have proclamations and some proclamations after them for all of us, because this is a very important time for our community to celebrate the life of a man who's been forgotten for so many years. And we'll start with the Mayor of Danville, Scott Eisenhower.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here. More importantly, thank you for letting me be a part of such a ceremony here this afternoon. It is on behalf of the 33,000 great and grateful citizens of the city of Danville that I proclaim the following. Whereas Martin McHugh was a seaman aboard the USS Cincinnati during one of the most momentous days in his life, May 27, 1863. Whereas the Cincinnati steamed along the Mississippi River, it would fall under attack and fall defenseless to the barrage of shells from the 1st Tennessee Heavy Artillery. Whereas Martin McHugh, along with 3 other sailors, began swimming back and forth to the shore, rescuing their shipmates while the cannonballs kept flying around them. Whereas Martin McHugh and 5 other men on board would receive the highest of all military awards, the Congressional Medal of Honor, with his citation signed by President Abraham Lincoln himself. Whereas in early February 1905, Martin McHugh died at the Soldiers' Home in Danville. He was buried in here, what is now known as Resurrection Cemetery, in a grave that was not permanently marked. Whereas although Vermilion County ranks among the highest in the nation for the number of Medal of Honor recipients either from here or buried here, McHugh's name and burial record had fallen through the cracks. Whereas thanks to the hard work of a dedicated group of individuals, Martin McHugh's unmarked grave was found and his name added to the local list of Medal of Honor recipients to honor the man, his heroism, and his memory. Now therefore, I, Scott Eisenhower, as mayor of the city of Danville, do hereby urge all citizens to join me in honoring this man and extend our thanks for his dedication and contribution to our community and for his service to our country. I hereby proclaim Saturday, April 21st of 2012 as Martin McHugh Day in Danville. Thank you again for being a part of such a momentous occasion in our community.
And now, let's welcome the County Board Chairman of Vermilion County, James Mouse McMahon.
I, too, am honored to be able to present this proclamation on behalf of 80,000 citizens in our county, and we appreciate the dedication that Mrs. Long did to get this to our services. I can tell you from being in the county board that several nights I tried to leave before Mrs. Long, and I could not get the job done. She just stayed hours and hours to find what we need today to find our grave. Thank you, Mrs. Long. Whereas on behalf of Martin McHugh was born in County Galway, Ireland, and whereas Martin McHugh enlisted in U.S. Navy on October 20th, 1862, and whereas in November 1862, Seaman McHugh was assigned to the USS Cincinnati, and whereas on November 1862 until January 1863, the USS Cincinnati saw action on the Western River, including the Yazoo River in Mississippi, and whereas in January of 1863, the U.S. Cincinnati took part in the capture of Fort Hindman in Arkansas on the White River, and whereas on the 27th day of May on the Mississippi River in Pittsburgh, a fierce battle raged and the U.S. Cincinnati was heavily damaged. And whereas Seaman McHugh, at great personal risk, helped save the lives of his commanders and his crewmates. And whereas Seaman McHugh was awarded the Medal of Honor for his courage action of that day. Whereas Seaman McHugh continued to serve his country until discharge in 1865, and whereas Seaman McHugh lived in Danville for 40 years and died in February of 1905, and where was buried here in St. Pat's, now known as Resurrection Cemetery. And whereas Seaman McHugh unmarked grave was recently found, his name has been added to the local list of Medal Honors recipients, and the Courage Civil War veterans grave now being properly marked, and his memory will be honored in Vermilion County. Now therefore, I, James McMahon, Vermilion County Board Chairman, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the laws of Vermilion County, Illinois, do hereby proclaim this day, 21st of April, the year of 2012, a day of tribute to Seaman McHugh.
And next, let's welcome State Representative Chad Hayes.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. You know, President Abraham Lincoln once noted that you can judge the greatness of a nation by how she treats her veterans. And what a long and wonderful history in this community, and what a model for how to treat veterans around this country. You know, President Lincoln and General and later President U.S. Grant, their deeds are well known, but it's the deeds of people like Seaman McHugh that saved this nation. Saved this nation in some ways from herself. What a wonderful occasion this is, remembering a man whose deeds 150 years ago played such an enormous part in saving this union. I am very proud to present on behalf of the Illinois House of Representatives this certificate of recognition. The 97th General Assembly House of Representatives acknowledges Seaman Martin McHugh in recognition of being awarded the prestigious Medal of Honor by President Lincoln for his heroic action during the Battle of Vicksburg in 1863 during the Civil War, and receiving his long-awaited Veterans National Cemetery Administration issuance of the Medal of Honor marker after more than 100 years. Thank you so much for being here. This is a man who later worked in the coal mines that defined much of this county, particularly the southern part of this county. This is a very proud day for our county. Thank you.
And now let's welcome State Senator Mike Frerichs.
I'm proud to be here today representing, along with Representative Chad Hayes, the 13 million people of the great state of Illinois to honor Seaman Martin McHugh. It truly is an honor to be here today and something that ought to be done. Some may question why people would come out for someone who so long ago served our country. Why are we not honoring current people who are giving and sacrificing so much? We come out here today because people in Vermilion County understand that we have a commitment to the people who show honor and valor for our country, no matter when it happens. And we continue to honor their service to our country and their sacrifice. We do it because of someone who achieves the highest Medal of Honor that our country bestows. We want to make sure that it continues, that the community knows we continue to honor that service. But also this community wants to send a loud message to the men and women serving in our forces today, those exhibiting similar honor and valor in service to our country, and so that they know that they will never be forgotten. And for that, I want to thank everyone who came out here today to send such a strong message from Vermilion County. Thank you.
Next is a gentleman who's a former United States Marine, Charles Hall of the Ward Hill Layman Civil War Roundtable, and he's going to read for us now the exact wording of the citation signed by Abraham Lincoln for Seaman Martin McHugh.
War Department, General Orders Number 17, 10 July 1863. The President of the United States of America, in the name of Congress, takes pleasure in presenting the Medal of Honor to Seaman Martin McHugh, United States Navy, for extraordinary heroism and action while serving on board the USS Cincinnati during the attack on the Vicksburg, Mississippi batteries and at the time of her sinking, 27 May 1863. Engaging the enemy in a fierce battle, the Cincinnati, amidst an incessant fire of shot and shell, continued to fire her guns to the last, though so penetrated by shell fire that her fate was sealed. Serving bravely during this action, Seaman McHugh was conspicuously cool under the fire of the enemy, never ceasing to fire until this proud ship went down, her colors nailed to the mast. Signed, President Abraham Lincoln.
Thank you, Charlie. And at this point, we're first, prior to unveiling his stone, we have a plaque here, which was presented by the Ward Hill Layman Civil War Roundtable. We'd like to unveil that, and to do that, another member of the Roundtable, Mr. Robert Snell. Will you walk over here, please? This gentleman was a member of the Honor Guard, for General Douglas MacArthur for 2 years, just prior to the start of the Korean War. So we'd welcome Kevin and Charles to welcome him there as we unveil the new plaque here, reading more about his deeds. Greg Green will now read what you will read later on that plaque.
On May 27, 1863, the USS Cincinnati steamed past Vicksburg, Mississippi, on a mission to destroy a Confederate artillery battery that was blocking the Union Army's approach to the city. Almost a dozen guns of the 1st Tennessee Heavy Artillery, hidden high on a bluff above the Mississippi River, opened fire on the ironclad. The ensuing fusillade sent the Cincinnati swirling and sinking, unable to make it to the shore. The brave efforts of Seaman Martin McHugh to save his crewmates and captain at the risk of his own life earned him the nation's highest military honor. Less than 6 weeks after his heroic actions in the face of enemy cannon fire, Martin McHugh was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. His citation was personally signed by President Abraham Lincoln.
American Legion Post 288 will fire a salute in the honor of Seaman Martin McHugh.
Detail. Ready. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Present.
And give a round of applause for this brand new stone for Martin McHugh. Proudly showing that this gentleman is indeed a Medal of Honor recipient.
I'm blown away by your reception and your participation in a project such as this. I'm a member of the Medal of Honor Historical Society. Our goal is the preservation of the history of the Medal of Honor. And what we do is we ensure that the information in the book is correct. And part of that is locating the lost. That's where I come in. I love to look for these guys. I needed something to do during retirement. I found a little tidbit concerning Martin McHugh. I just happened to send an email off. And lo and behold, I was lucky enough to get Michelle Long. And like a pit bull, she grabbed onto this and hasn't let go.
Petty Officer Elston to present this flag, to join with our friend over here, Canon Flattery, to present this flag very specially to someone. And I know before that's presented that Canon Flattery would like to tell us who and why. Because as yet, don't give up. We have not found a family member, even though I believe we will find a McHugh descendant. Father Flattery?
We tried to find a living descendant. We have a possibility now that's turned up because of Judge Shorensky's research. But the committee said, what are we going to do with the flag? And they all agreed that the one man that we could all think of as our first thought, who has done so much for the military in Vermilion County, was Sparky. Who else should be the custodian of that flag? No one disagrees, and so now Larry and I want to present that to him.
Present. The sacrifice that's been made for our freedom, I think sometimes we've forgotten, really, especially from the Civil War perspective, the sacrifice, the great sacrifice that was made, particularly in this county where 1/4 of the men that went to the Civil War were killed in action.
Honestly, I never thought this day would come, but you know, I had read a quote and it just keeps ringing in my head, the triumph of soul over flesh, and you know, that's what I feel today. It's like it's all in the air, and Seaman McHugh has finally gotten the recognition he deserves for his triumph of soul over flesh.
My heart skipped a beat when Michelle called and said, there's a Medal of Honor recipient. I've called several people. They don't seem very excited about it, but I think it's a big deal. And I said almost loudly, big deal, of course it is. And so when we found the Civil War recipient who'd been buried here unknown or forgotten for 107 years, it was great, and we thought this man deserves to be remembered. So it happens very rarely, and we're just thrilled to have found him. That there's a little bit of a hero in all of us. Martin McHugh wasn't anyone who was any different from the rest of us, except in a different time period. A regular guy, put in a very unusual situation, and the best in humanity jumped out in him as he jumped back in the water to save his fellow crew members. And I think that it tells all of us that, yes, we should go for it. If you can be a hero, do it. He did. He was forgotten, but now he's back on the map again.